Picture this exact moment with me. It is late February of 2023, and a woman from Medellin, Colombia, has just released an album with a title that feels like a promise. On February 24th, 2023, Karol G drops Mañana Será Bonito, and very soon after, it reaches #1 on the Billboard 200, making it the first all-Spanish language album by a woman to hit that spot. That is a measurable history-making headline, but what moves me is the human side of it. Because this is not the story of someone who woke up famous one day. This is a story built from years of hearing no, of being underestimated in a male-dominated genre, of leaving home, of starting over, and of keeping her heart soft while her goals stayed hard. And when you remember she was born on February 14th, 1991, you realize she spent decades becoming the person who could carry that moment without breaking. So today, while you're listening, I want you to listen for how her life keeps proving a simple idea. Consistency changes everything. If you enjoy learning English through real stories like this, subscribe, like, and leave a comment about what you think of Karol G, or if you have ever had a dream that took longer than you expected, because I really believe those are the dreams that end up meaning the most. Karol G's real name is Carolina Giraldo Navarro, and she grew up in Medellin, in the department of Antioquia in Colombia. Medellin is a city with a complicated history, but it is also a city full of creativity, style, and music, and Karol grew up inside that energy. She was one of the kids who did not just enjoy music, she needed it. And she had a family that saw her love for it early. When she was a teenager, she took a bold step that a lot of people only talk about but never actually do. She put herself in situations where she could be judged. In 2006, she appeared on Factor X's in Colombia, and she was only around 15 years old. Just imagine that. At 15, most people are terrified of standing out, but she was already choosing visibility, already choosing pressure. A natural English expression here is to put yourself out there. When you put yourself out there, you show people what you can do even though you might fail. That's what she did. And even though that appearance did not instantly make her a superstar, it was a seed. It proved she could handle nerves, cameras, and criticism. And those are skills you cannot fake later. As she got older, she kept chasing music seriously, and something important happened that many fans forget. For a while, she worked in a scene where women were not always welcomed, especially in reggaeton and urban music spaces that were dominated by men. That meant she was not only trying to be good, she was trying to be taken seriously. She has talked in interviews over the years about how hard it was to walk into studios and meetings and be doubted before she even sang one note. And honestly, this is one of the most relatable parts of her story, even if you are not a musician. Sometimes you can feel that people have already decided what you are capable of, and you have to work twice as hard just to be seen as equal. Karol kept going anyway. She recorded, she performed, she built connections, and she learned how the industry worked, because talent is important, but knowledge protects you. If you're learning English, it's kind of the same. You can have a good ear, but if you learn how the language works in real life, you feel more confident and more in control. By the early and mid-2010s, Karol was working and releasing music, and step by step, her name started spreading beyond Colombia. One solid milestone that really matters is that she began collaborating with established artists, which is often a major bridge for rising stars. Around 2014, she released the song Amor de Dos with Nicky Jam, and it helped her reach more listeners in the Latin music world. Collaboration is not only about fame, it is also about learning. When you work with someone more experienced, you learn how they build a song, how they show up, how they handle expectations. And Karol was learning fast. She was building her identity as an artist, not copying anyone, but also not pretending she could do everything alone. Another everyday English phrase that fits here is, she was paying her dues. Paying your dues means doing the hard work for years before you get the big reward. No shortcuts, just effort. Then comes a real turning point, and I want you to feel why it mattered. In 2017, Karol G released Ahura Miyama with Bad Bunny. That collaboration became one of the songs that pushed her into a bigger international conversation, and 2017 is also the year she released her debut studio album, Unstoppable. Those are not small steps. Those are career steps. When an artist releases an album, it is like saying, "This is who I am, this is my world, this is what I sound like when you let me build the whole story." And she did it with confidence. The title Unstoppable was not just a word, it was a mindset. There is a phrase in English, "This is where things started to click." When things start to click, it means the pieces start fitting together and you finally see real progress. Her music was clicking with fans, her image was getting clearer, and the industry was starting to understand that she was not a trend. She was a force. In the next couple of years, she kept building momentum, and her name became harder to ignore. In 2018, her song Me Kama became a big hit, and later it got a remix with artists like J Balvin and Nicky Jam, which widened its reach even more. What I love about this era is how she blended strength and softness. She could deliver confidence, but she could also show vulnerability. And that balance is part of why people connect with her. She wasn't acting perfect. She was acting real. And being real takes courage, especially when millions of people are watching you and waiting for you to mess up. This is where you can learn a very natural English idea. When we say someone found their lane, we mean they discovered the style and direction that fits them best. Around this time, Karol G was finding her lane. And you could hear it in the sound, see it in the visuals, and feel it in how she carried herself. Now let's talk about one of her most recognizable, fan-famous signature moments, because this one is stamped into pop culture. On November 7th, 2019, Karol G released Tusa with Nicki Minaj. And this wasn't just a collaboration, it was a global moment, especially for Latin music and for women in urban pop. The song became huge, and it reached #1 on Billboard's Hot Latin Songs chart, where it stayed for a long run, including a well-known record of 25 weeks at #1. Think about that. 25 weeks is not a quick trend. It is a season of dominance. It is the kind of success that changes your daily life because suddenly your voice is everywhere. Stores, cars, clubs, weddings, social media, even people who don't follow the genre know the chorus. Another expression you can learn here is word got out. Word got out means people started hearing about something and talking about it, and the news spread fast. After Tusa, word got out in a new way. Karol G wasn't just famous in Latin music circles, she was becoming a worldwide name. And with worldwide attention comes worldwide pressure. This is the part of the story where I always slow down, because I want you to notice something important for your own life. Big success does not erase insecurity. It often brings it to the surface. When you rise quickly, everyone expects you to keep rising, and they forget you are human. Karol kept releasing music and collaborating, and she also started showing more of her personality and her story. She became known not only for hits, but for being open about emotions, about heartbreak, about healing, about growth. This is where her connection with fans got deeper, because fans do not only fall in love with songs, they fall in love with an artist's honesty. In everyday English, you might say she kept it real. Keeping it real means being honest and authentic, not pretending your life is perfect. In 2021, she released an album that matters a lot in her timeline. On March 26, 2021, Karol G released KG0516. Even the title feels personal, like a code from her life, and it was a big statement album packed with collaborations and different sounds. Albums like this show stamina, because it is hard to keep your audience while also growing. You have to give people what they love, but you also have to challenge yourself, because if you don't grow, you get bored, and then your art gets smaller. And Karol did not get smaller. She expanded. She built a bigger musical world, she was also becoming more influential in fashion and culture, not just music. And here's a gentle reminder I want to give you as your English teacher friend. When you listen to artists like Karol G, you are training your ear to rhythm, stress, emotion, and real-world vocabulary. You are learning without forcing it, and that is one of the best ways to learn. Then 2022 arrives, and she keeps delivering songs that feel like they live in the real world, not only inside a studio. On April 22, 2022, she released Provenza, and it became one of the defining songs of that year in Latin pop and reggaeton spaces. It also showed how strong she had become as a global streaming artist, with her music traveling across countries instantly. Later in 2022, she released more music that stayed in heavy rotation, including Gatubala, which came out in August 2022. When you look at these releases, you see consistency. She was not disappearing for years and hoping people would remember her. She was building a relationship with listeners. In English, you can say she showed up. She showed up again and again. Showing up means being present and doing the work, even when you're tired, even when you're busy, even when you're not sure you can beat your last success. Now we reach 2023, and this is the heart of the modern Karol G story. On February 24, 2023, Mañana Será Bonito was released, and it became a massive cultural moment. And yes, the chart fact is real and important. It hit #1 on the Billboard 200, and it was widely reported as a first for an all-Spanish album by a woman reaching the top of that chart. That kind of milestone is bigger than one artist because it pushes the industry to recognize audiences that were always there. It proves that language is not a limitation. Emotion is the real language. And on that same album, there is also TQG with Shakira, another huge superstar, which made the release even more powerful in the public eye. When two major artists join forces like that, it becomes an event, not just a song. Another expression you'll hear native speakers use is, "it hit different." When something hits different, it feels stronger or more emotional than you expected. For so many fans, that album hit different because it sounded like survival turning into celebration. And here is what I want you to notice as a learner and as a human. The title, Mañana Será Bonito, is not only pretty. It is a mindset for anyone who has been through a hard season. The idea that tomorrow will be beautiful is not naive when you have earned it. It is brave. Karol G built that bravery over time, and you can see it in how she carried this era. She did not sound like she was asking permission anymore. She sounded like she knew exactly who she was, and she was inviting you into her world. That is real confidence. Not loud confidence that needs attention, but steady confidence that comes from experience. As her career grew, so did her touring power, and touring is one of the hardest parts of music life. It is physically exhausting, emotionally demanding, and it requires discipline. In the 2020s, and especially around 2023 and 2024, Karol G's concerts became major events, with huge crowds and a high level of production. She was not just performing songs. She was carrying a full emotional experience for thousands of people at a time. When people talk about her shows, they often talk about energy, connection, and the feeling that she genuinely cares. That is not an accident. That is leadership. And leadership is a language skill too, because leaders learn how to communicate clearly under pressure. If you ever feel nervous speaking English, remember this. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you practice until it becomes familiar. Karol G didn't become comfortable on big stages by wishing. She became comfortable by performing again and again until the stage felt like home. Another signature moment worth grounding in a real date is her Grammy win, because it shows how her work was recognized at the highest level. On February 4, 2024, at the 66th Annual Grammy Awards, Karol G won Best Música Urbana Album for Mañana Será Bonito. That is a concrete achievement in a global award system, And it matters because it reflects both popularity and industry recognition. For an artist who spent years being underestimated, that kind of moment is emotional. It is like the world finally catches up to what you already knew about yourself. In English, we say it was a long time coming. A long time coming means it took a long time to happen, but it finally happened, and it feels deserved. When I look at Karol G's biography as one long story, I see patterns that are really helpful for your English journey too. First, she built her foundation early, like in 2006 on Factor X's, when the result was not the point, the experience was the point. Second, she committed to the long game, releasing music and learning the industry through the 2010s. Third, she took strategic collaborations that expanded her audience, like Ahora Me Lama in 2017 and especially Tusa on November 7, 2019. Fourth, she proved stamina with albums like KG0516 on March 26, 2021, and then she reached a new peak with Mañana Será Bonito on February 24, 2023, followed by major recognition like her Grammy on February 4, 2024. You can feel how each year stacks on the next one, like building a staircase. Nobody jumps to the top step. People climb. And climbing is not glamorous, but it is real. I also want to say something gentle about identity, because Karol G's story is deeply connected to being a Latina artist making global music in Spanish. She did not wait for the world to become comfortable with her language. She made the world listen anyway. And that is such a powerful reminder for you if you are learning English. Your accent is not a flaw. Your accent is proof that you learned something brave. And the goal is not to erase where you come from. The goal is to express yourself clearly so your personality can shine through. Karol G's personality shines through her music, through her visuals, through her stage presence. She did not become global by becoming less Colombian. She became global by becoming more herself. So when you think about her, I want you to remember her not only as a hitmaker, but as a builder. She built her voice, her career, her discipline, and her resilience. And she did it in public, while people judged her, compared her, and sometimes doubted her. If you are having one of those seasons where progress feels slow, I want you to hold on to that phrase from her biggest era. Mañana será bonito. Tomorrow will be beautiful. Not because life is easy, but because you are learning how to keep going. And as you keep listening to English, day by day, your brain is quietly building new pathways, even when you don't notice it yet. One day, you will speak, and you will surprise yourself. It will feel natural, and you will realize you have been growing the whole time. Stay with me for just a second longer, and think about this. If a girl born in Medellin on February 14, 1991, can face a tough industry, appear on national TV at 15 in 2006, keep paying her dues through the 2010s, break through with major releases in 2017, shake global charts with a song released on November 7, 2019, and then take an all-Spanish album to #1 on the Billboard 200 after February 24, 2023, and win a Grammy on February 4, 2024, then what does that say about patience, about practice, about belief? It says your timeline is allowed to be long. It says you are allowed to grow in stages. And it says the world can change when you refuse to shrink. If you want, leave a comment telling me which Karol G era inspires you most or which part of her story you relate to. And while you do that, try using one new English expression from today, like put yourself out there, pay your dues, things started to click, word got out, keep it real, show up, or a long time coming. Use it in a sentence about your own life. That's how English becomes yours, not just something you study. And I'll be right here with you, celebrating every small step, because small steps are how every big story begins.